Hey guys, it's me, Sprinkle Girl, and thank you for sprinkling onto this video. As you can see, I'm alive. Why haven't I been posting? Because I had no video ideas. But while rewatching Alice Mark's video on every Spongebob episode and the spin-offs, I realized that I, as a fan of Spongebob, would be able to think of a spin-off that people would actually like. So, let's test that. This video will be split into 3 parts. The first is me ranting, the second is me talking about season 1 of my spin-off, and the last is me talking about season 2. Hope you enjoy! Out of all the ideas they could have gone with, they chose to turn the characters into babies and give the worst one his own show? Like, seriously, Patrick? The character with the least potential? But of course, Nickelodeon doesn't care as long as it makes them more money. You know how much more money you would make if it was actually good? But seriously, with the concept alone, Camp Coral would be mediocre at best. The Patrick show was destined to be nothing. I don't think anyone got hyped for them, and why would you be when there is nothing to care about? They do nothing to set themselves apart from the original, and it doesn't tell us more about the world or characters. It's a shameless cash grab, and there wasn't any need for 2 of them. They could have combined the budget of both spin-offs and made a better one. Like, I've only watched clips of Camp Coral, but the backgrounds look so blank and lifeless. The thing about original SpongeBob, even the recent seasons, is that the backgrounds always looked beautiful. So I decided to keep my imaginary spin-off 2D. I've teased you enough, so time to reveal my idea. It's the Plankton and Mr. Krabs show. Obviously, that would be the title. Now, you might be skeptical, but listen. This would be a spin-off about Krabs and Plankton before the events of SpongeBob SquarePants. Season 1 would focus on them when they were kids, and it'd be episodic, while Season 2 would be them after the friendship ended, and it'd be a bit more serialized, but still episodic. I guess, kind of. You can watch it either way, it's fine. The ages would be consistent in Season 1, but in Season 2 they may go from teenager to adult in a matter of episodes. I think there's a lot of potential with these concepts. These 2 are the only characters that haven't changed too much, and plus, they're old, meaning we can explore all the Bikini Bottom. Fun! There are also many topics to discuss with Krabs, like his wife, life as a pirate, and him opening the Krusty Krab. When it comes to Plankton, there are mainly things that only I want to see. Like, I don't think most of you guys would care to see Plankton completely missing the point on an assignment, but I would. I think the tone for this show would be a bit darker and less lol random for kids. Something a bit like Puss in Boots' The Last Wish. It's a kids movie but discusses topics like death and divorce. Now, let's talk about what I think the individual seasons would be like. Season 1. It would have original SpongeBob vibes. You know, the first 3 seasons, the good ones, that are actually funny. I don't want to make me kill myself. They'd be kids, so, you know, the things that happened before Friend or Foe. And I have an episode example. Only 1 for season 1, but like 5 for the second one. Krabs wants something from the toy store but doesn't have the money for it. Plankton makes a master plan of stealing it with little gadgets he made. But because he's a kid, the gadgets don't work as intended. They get caught and kicked out. Krabs is sad, so Plankton gives him a toy gadget he made. It's simple, but so is pizza delivery, and that's the most popular episode, at least I think so. It would also show that Plankton is actually not that bad of a person and wanted to cheer his friend up and how they were actually friends. Because I feel like, you know, we got a show in the first season that they were friends. Like, show don't tell, you know. The final episode would be Friend or Foe, except it'd be an 11-minute segment, not a 22-minute special, and just so it's still worth watching even if you've seen the original, it'd be a bit different. Different jokes, more fleshed out and connected to the rest of the season, and we'd get different details. Now for season 2, I need to be prepared because I took detailed notes, like it's a full-on script. It was meant to be just notes. No, I wrote a script. Like, so, in this one, it would be that every episode, you know how it has 11-minute segments? Well, the first one would be about Plankton, and then the second segment would be about Krabs, so what they're doing during the same time, at different places, you know, living different lives. So in the first one, Plankton is in college. We get to see that he isn't sure what he wants, he doesn't understand his assignments, keeps failing and losing hope. and we just get to see him struggle. Now, we know he went to college because in the first season, it's something he said, like, every time he appeared. So, we have to show that, like, it's a requirement. While Krabs didn't go to college, because if he did, then Plankton wouldn't be flexing him going to college. So Krabs decided to follow in his grandpa's footsteps and become a cook for pirates. You know that episode where he's telling Squidward and Spongebob on like a bad day, like a rainy day, his stories from being a pirate and how he saved everyone and became the captain? Yeah, that was all lies. In reality, during that time, Krabs tried to help and be a hero, and he failed and got kicked out of the crew. In the second episode, Plankton would get better at robotics, but he'd get so caught up in trying to get good grades and not be a failure that he forgets to do everything else, and now everything he's tasked with and every assignment he gets is just robotics. He keeps building robots and it's a mess. It's like that episode where SpongeBob got fired and trying to get a new job, but all he can do is make Krabby Patties. While Krabs gets a job as a cashier in a restaurant and dreams about opening a restaurant himself, but the concept of this episode is that he falls for a customer and gives her cheaper food, more food, free food, and pays for her stuff. So when the other customers find out, they fight over him for the food. Now episode 3 is where it gets good. This is my favorite idea. Plankton desperately tries to get friends before graduation, but when he tries, everyone just kind of makes fun of him for being a nerd. So to get friends, he made a robot of like a handsome looking fish, and then he went inside the robot and he controlled it. And all of a sudden, even though he said and acted the exact same way, everyone liked him. Pretty privilege. The thing is, no one actually cared about what he was saying still, but everyone was just like, oh, you know who I'm friends with? That cool fish guy, Chad, or I don't know, whatever Plankton's fake name would be. Probably not Chad. But Plankton would get annoyed and start insulting everyone to make them feel bad for what they did. And everyone does feel insecure, but they don't realize their mistake because people. But then he insults a jock, and that jock gets very angry and fights with him, which results in the robot breaking and Plankton popping out of it. And when everyone realizes, they start laughing at him and are like, I'm glad it was just Plankton insulting me because that doesn't matter, he's annoying anyways. Showing how messed up the world is and how some people are just trash. Fun! During this, Krabs is getting married to that fish that, that customer that he fell for. Yeah, there would be episodes before this where they're dating, but, these are just a few episode concepts, not in actual, order. Like there would be episodes between these. So they're planning their wedding, but all of their relatives disagree with everything they want to do. So they decide to just do what all of their relatives want to do and write that into the plan. And all of their relatives are pleased, but then they aren't, because that's not the wedding they wanted. And they talk about it and realize that this is their day, so they make it the way they wanted, and sure, relatives complain, but who cares, because it's their day. And at the end of the episode, turns out Krabs' wife has a relative who owns a restaurant, or is starting a restaurant, and wants to partner up with Krabs on it. But episode 4 is a 22-minute special, where Krabs and Plankton reunite, I guess, kind of, you'll see. So Plankton is applying to jobs because he graduated, but, he isn't getting any jobs and he doesn't have any friends, so he's making robots to keep him company. But before he could finish making those robots, he saw on the newspaper a job that was looking for employees, a restaurant called the Krusty Krab. He met up with the manager, Krabs, but did not recognize him because he only heard his last name, and who recognizes people by their last names? There's so many people with the same last name, right? So they talked and Plankton got the job. He was ecstatic. He finally had a job and it was working out great until he started cooking. And then he smelled the patties, he got the smell of the patties, even though he doesn't have a nose, but we're gonna ignore that. And he you know how smells bring you back in time? Yeah, he remembered. And he was like, oh my god, Krabs, Eugene Krabs, it is literally my childhood friend. After years of not having friends, he finally found his childhood friend. they could just rebond, reunite, and everything would be awesome. Like, his life would be going great. The restaurant is gaining traction, it's all amazing. And then Krabs even gets interviewed. But the thing about this is, every time Krabs got interviewed or people were talking about the restaurant, it was always Krabs' restaurant. It was always Krabs' burgers, even though Plankton was the one cooking the burgers, and if not for Plankton, this recipe wouldn't even exist. So Plankton got a bit egotistical and selfish and jealous. But to be honest, kinda fair, because he's been living a horrible life right now. And then Plankton had an idea. He started construction on his house, quote-unquote house, in front of the Krusty Krab, and started rebuilding his robots. And once the construction was finished, he asked Krab for the recipe of the patties because, he's the chef, he needs it, right? And Krabs had no reason to not trust him, so he gave it to him. And the very next day, nothing is happening in the Krusty Krabs. There's no one. So Krabs is confused, goes outside, and sees that the building in front of him is a huge bucket that says Chum Bucket. And everyone is going there. And when he walks inside, the waiters are robots. Turns out that Plankton just used his recipe and made a cooler restaurant. So everyone just went there. And in a few weeks, Krabs went broke because there was barely anyone going to his restaurant. And he was very desperate for money because he remembered not having any proper clothes as a kid, being poor, and he couldn't get in that situation, not again. So he goes and becomes a chef for Plankton. Now, the little guy is very pleased with himself. He's happy, ecstatic. But, robots, the old days, not very well constructed. So, it kind of malfunctioned, and robots saw the customers as food and started bringing them around at tables and putting them in ovens. People stopped going there, and Krabs got his restaurant back, basically, because people started visiting the Krusty Krabs more. And slowly, Plankton had no customers. And Krabs was desperate than ever to have money. He wanted to make sure that that situation would never happen, so he became very cheap because he doesn't want to experience that again, right? And he hired a cashier and chef, both 2 in 1, because less payment needed. And his name was Squidward Tentacles. Hey. And all of Plankton's robots were malfunctioning and destroyed, except one, which he named Karen. In episode 5, I actually haven't fully written this, so, the first segment is written properly, but the second one is not. Plankton gets jealous of Krabs for having, a wife and a life, so he decided to marry his robot Karen from the last episode. Plankton made improvements to Karen by making her analyze emotions and imitating them, because I don't know how else Karen would express emotions, because she clearly does in the show, and so, she imitates them. She doesn't actually feel them, The problem is that Plankton doesn't understand how romance works, so he thinks, rom-coms, clearly, that'll be my guide. So he love bombs Karen, she gets overwhelmed and breaks down. He does the cool guy act, and then Karen gets confused, thinking she's meant to ignore him too. He does movie night, but then Karen thinks she's meant to analyze the movie, and it was a horror movie, so Plankton almost died. And Plankton was very confused, so he just, got very annoyed and talked to Karen about it. And, that conversation worked out, and Karen understood, kind of, as far as a robot can understand emotion, And Plankton was like, wait, what? How? Couples in rom-coms never communicate their emotions. How come this worked? Get it? Cause I'm annoyed at all the movies where people don't communicate, because that would solve so many problems. In the second segment, we would show that Mrs. Krabs is sick, because we have to somehow lead up to her unfortunate off-screen death. She always wanted to have a kid, and she doesn't have that much time left, so Krabs decides to adopt a kid from foster care, and that is our girly Pearl. And, he doesn't really like her that much, but he did it for his wife because she doesn't have that much time left. But slowly they start bonding, and he actually likes her, and like they have a good family dynamic and stuff. I don't know. I haven't. This episode was just like too complicated for me to think, because I don't know how family works. Who am I, a child? I didn't script or write notes for the outro. Tell me, do you think that my spin-off is a better idea, or that Nickelodeon did it right? I don't know. I kind of prefer mine, but maybe I'm biased. So, comment your opinions, like this video, subscribe, turn the notification bell on, and I'll upload probably in another 5 months. Bye!